What would you do if the one place you built in secret to finally have peace was suddenly invaded, turned into a stage for your family's betrayal, until the moment your husband stormed in and everything shattered? This isn't just about a cabin. It's about control, trust, and the kind of revenge no one saw coming. When family crosses the line between love and violation, when your sanctuary becomes their playground, sometimes the only answer is to show them exactly what boundaries mean with consequences they'll never forget. My name is Clara Mitchell, and I've spent 34 years learning that privacy isn't a luxury, it's survival. Growing up in a cramped house in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with parents who believed doors were meant to stay open and siblings who thought personal space was a suggestion, I discovered early that the only way to breathe was to create distance. I work as a financial analyst at Everline Capital, a mid-sized tech investment firm in Detroit. The job pays well enough $78,000 a year plus bonuses, but that's not why I took it. I took it because numbers don't argue. They don't barge into your office without knocking. They don't demand to know why you need time alone. Every morning at 6:30, I drive through downtown Detroit's awakening streets, past the renovated warehouses turned into artisan coffee shops, past the ghosts of the auto industry's golden age. My corner office on the 14th floor has a door that locks. That detail mattered more to me than the salary during negotiations. But even that wasn't enough. 2 years ago, after a particularly suffocating Thanksgiving where my mother Linda went through my phone while I was in the bathroom and my sister Megan announced she'd be staying with me for 3 weeks without asking, I made a decision. I opened a separate savings account at a different bank. Every bonus, every bit of overtime pay, every tax refund went into it. I called it my Freedom Fund. Last spring, I founded a cabin 40 miles north of the city, nestled on the shore of Lake Pinecrest. It wasn't fancy 900 square feet of weathered wood and stone, built in the 70s by someone who understood that walls weren't prison bars but sanctuaries. The realtor, a woman in her 60s with knowing eyes, didn't ask many questions when I paid cash. She just smiled and said, "Sometimes a woman needs a room of her own." The first time I walked through that door alone, I cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of finding a space where no one could follow me. The living room had massive windows facing the lake, flooding the space with golden afternoon light. The kitchen was small but complete, with a gas stove that hummed to life with a satisfying click. The bedroom tucked under the eaves felt like a nest, safe and high and hidden. I furnished it slowly, deliberately, a leather reading chair from an estate sale. A dining table I restored myself, sanding away years of other people's memories to create my own blank slate. Bookshelves I assembled alone on a Sunday afternoon, drilling each screw with the windows open, listening to nothing but bird song and the lap of water against the shore. The smell of pine and cedar became my perfume. The silence became my music. Every other weekend, I would tell whatever lie-necessary work conference, college friend visiting from out of state, continuing education seminar, and disappear into my secret world. There, I could read until 3 a.m. without anyone asking why I was still awake. I could eat cheese and crackers for dinner without commentary about proper nutrition. I could sit on the deck and watch the sunset paint the lake in shades of copper and gold, thinking nothing, being nothing except myself. This cabin wasn't just property. It was proof that I could create something entirely mine in a world that demanded I share everything. It was evidence that Clara Mitchell existed as a complete person, not just as a daughter, sister, wife, or employee. In that space, I didn't owe anyone an explanation, an apology, or my time, and I guarded that secret with my life. Even Ethan didn't know, my husband of 8 years, the man who shared my bed, my mortgage, my supposed life. I kept the cabin from him like a mistress might hide a lover. The guilt occasionally surfaced, usually at 2 a.m., when he'd roll over and drape his arm across me, murmuring something sweet in his sleep. But by morning, when he'd leave cabinet doors open, invite his parents over without asking, or tell his brother Jake about our financial plans over beers, The guilt evaporated like morning dew. Ethan came from a family where houses had revolving doors. His mother, Nancy, kept spare keys to all her children's homes on a labeled hook by her kitchen. His father, Gerald, would show up unannounced on Saturday mornings with his toolbox, ready to fix things that weren't broken. They meant well. God. They always meant well, but meaning well, and respecting boundaries lived in different universes in the Mitchell family. Privacy is just another word for having something to hide, Nancy once told me over coffee, after I'd suggested maybe calling before dropping by. Family doesn't need appointments. Ethan, a structural engineer who could calculate load-bearing walls but not emotional burdens, never understood why I'd tense up when his family appeared at our door. "They love you," he'd say, as if love was an all-access pass to my life. Most people would kill for in-laws who care this much. So I built my web of deception carefully, methodically, like the financial models I created at work. The cabin weekends became professional development workshops in Chicago. I created fake email confirmations, printed brochures from actual conferences, even bought myself the occasional conference tote bag from online sellers to leave casually around the house. My college roommate Sarah, who lived in Indiana, became my alibi for other escapes. I gave Sarah a backstory divorce, no kids, working in pharmaceutical sales, and mentioned her just enough to make her real but not interesting enough for Ethan to want to meet her. The credit card I used for cabin expenses went to my office address. The property tax bills went to a P.O. box I'd rented near work. I even bought a cheap second phone, a prepaid thing I kept locked in my desk drawer at Everline, just for cabin-related calls. The mortgage was paid off. I'd used my entire inheritance from my grandmother, the one person in my family who understood the value of a closed door. Every lie required 3 more to support it. Every deception needed careful maintenance. But it was worth it for those Friday evenings when I'd drive north, watching the city fade in my rearview mirror, feeling my shoulders drop with each mile marker. By the time I'd turn onto the dirt road that led to the cabin, I could breathe again. I'd arrive as the sun was setting, painting the lake in shades of amber and rose. The key would turn in the lock with a satisfying click, not the electronic beep of our suburban smart lock, but real metal on metal, mechanical and sure. The door would open to air that smelled like cedar and stillness. No television murmuring from another room. No refrigerator covered in reminders of obligations. No kitchen counter cluttered with mail addressed to the Mitchell family. Just space, just silence, just mine. On those stolen weekends, I'd turn off my regular phone and become nobody's anything. I'd make coffee at 9 a.m. without anyone commenting that it was late for breakfast. I'd read novels that Ethan would call depressing literary stuff without defending my choices. I'd walk along the shoreline at midnight, moonlight turning the water to liquid silver, without anyone worrying about my safety or asking what I was thinking about. The cabin held my real self like a secret room in an old house hidden behind a bookshelf, revealed only when you knew exactly which volume to pull. There, I kept journals I'd never write at home, filled with thoughts too private for sharing. There, I painted terrible watercolors that made me happy. There, I sometimes just sat in silence for hours, watching the light change across the water, thinking nothing that needed to be reported or explained. This was my freedom, purchased with cash and protected with lies. And as long as I was careful, as long as I maintained the illusion, it would remain mine alone, a perfect secret in an imperfect world. The cracks in my family foundation ran deeper than the Detroit River. My mother, Linda, operated like a benevolent dictator, disguising control as care. "We share everything in this family," she'd say, usually while rummaging through my purse for gum or reading my mail because it was on the counter. She collected information about her children like some people collected stamps, carefully cataloging every detail to be retrieved and displayed at family gatherings. My father, Paul, had perfected the art of strategic surrender 40 years ago. When Linda invaded, he retreated. When she overstepped, he smoothed things over. "Your mother means well," became his mantra, repeated so often it lost all meaning, like a word you say too many times until it becomes just sound. He'd watch her rifle through my laptop bag with the same expression he'd worn my entire childhood, mild discomfort, masked by practiced blindness. Then there was Megan, 5 years younger, and somehow always 5 steps ahead in the competition I never agreed to enter. She'd recently gotten engaged to Ryan, a finance bro who thought cryptocurrency was a personality trait, and she wielded that ring like a weapon. Every conversation became about wedding planning, every family dinner a venue discussion. She had this way of taking up all the oxygen in a room, then wondering aloud why I seemed so quiet. "You should be happy for me," she'd said last month, after I'd declined to spend a weekend touring wedding venues with her. "When you got married, I was there for everything." She hadn't been. She'd been 21 and drunk at my bachelorette party, crying about some boy whose name I couldn't remember. But in Megan's version of history, she was always the perfect sister to my difficult one. My brother Daniel, 3 years older, played the role of family diplomat with exhausting dedication. He'd married young, had 3 kids by 30, and now lived in a suburban fortress where Linda had her own key and used it liberally. He never complained, just smiled tightly while our mother rearranged his kitchen cabinets or told his wife Amy how to properly fold fitted sheets. "Family is everything," he'd say, like a Stockholm Syndrome poster child. The Mitchell side wasn't much better. Nancy, my mother-in-law, had turned boundary crossing into an art form. She'd once used her spare key to enter our house while we were at work and completely reorganized our closets. "I had a free day," she'd explained, genuinely puzzled by my reaction. "I thought you'd be grateful." Gerald, Ethan's father, communicated primarily through projects. He'd show up with lumber, paint, or plumbing supplies, having decided what our house needed without consultation. Last summer, I'd come home to find him power washing our deck, which hadn't needed it, while Nancy sat in my kitchen going through our financial documents to help with tax preparation. Every family gathering felt like a small invasion. Sunday dinners at Linda's meant enduring her commentary on my weight, my career, my decision to wait for children. "Your biological clock doesn't care about Everline Capital's quarterly reports," she'd say, passing me another serving of potatoes I hadn't asked for. Holiday celebrations at the Mitchells involved Nancy cornering me about when we'd give her more grandchildren, while Gerald questioned Ethan about why we hadn't bought a bigger house yet, something with a proper guest room. "For extended visits," he'd add, making my skin crawl. They all talked about love like it was a battering ram, something to break down doors with. They wrapped invasion in gift paper and called it caring. They stomped through boundaries like they were suggestions written in sand at low tide. "You're too sensitive," Megan would say when I'd object to her posting photos of me online without asking. "We're just trying to be close," Linda would insist while reading my text messages over my shoulder. "Family doesn't need permission," Nancy would declare, letting herself into our house while we were at dinner. And Ethan, dear Ethan, would watch it all with the same confused expression, genuinely unable to understand why I'd lock the bathroom door in my own home. "It's just family," he'd say, as if those 3 words excused everything, explained everything, justified everything. They pushed and pressed and pried, all of them, until I felt like I was suffocating in their love, drowning in their care, disappearing under the weight of their good intentions. The cabin wasn't just my escape, it was my oxygen mask, the only thing keeping me from completely vanishing into their version of who Clara Mitchell should be. Some nights, lying awake at 3 a.m., listening to Ethan's peaceful breathing, I'd imagine telling him about the cabin, but then I'd remember Nancy's spare keys, Linda's entitlement, Megan's social media addiction, and I'd swallow the words like bitter medicine. The cabin would remain mine, hidden like a life raft on a sinking ship, waiting for the day I'd really need it. I just didn't know that day was coming sooner than I thought. The Berlin trip was supposed to be straightforward. 3 days presenting Everline Capital's expansion proposal to European investors, 2 days of follow-up meetings, then home. I'd actually been looking forward to it 5 nights in a hotel room that no one else had a key to. presenting numbers that made sense, dealing with people who understood professional boundaries. I was sitting in my room at the Adlon Hotel at 11:45 p.m., Berlin time, reviewing tomorrow's presentation slides, when my phone buzzed. Marcus, an old college friend who'd moved to a cottage near Lake Pinecrest 2 years ago, had sent a video. The preview image showed lots of lights where there should have been darkness. My finger hovered over the play button. My cabin was supposed to be dark, empty, waiting patiently for my return like a loyal dog. But those lights? The video started shaky. Marcus's voice a whisper. "Clara, isn't this your place? I was walking Max and saw all these cars." My blood turned to ice water. 4 cars crowded the small dirt driveway. Every window blazed with light. Shadows moved behind the curtains, multiple shadows. The sound of music drifted across the lake. Something pop and cheerful that had never played in my sanctuary. Marcus had crept closer. Phone held low. Through the large living room windows, I could see them. My mother, gesturing wildly with a wine glass in hand, holding court in my leather reading chair. My father on the couch I'd bought with my bonus, nodding along to whatever story she was telling. Nancy and Gerald occupied the dining table I'd restored, playing cards like they owned the place. But it got worse. Marcus zoomed in, and there was Megan, wearing my favorite cream cashmere sweater, the one I kept in the cabin's bedroom closet, posing for photos by the fireplace. Ryan was taking them, directing her to look more candid while she laughed and twirled, her engagement ring catching the light. Daniel appeared in frame, carrying a plate from my kitchen, eating off my dishes, sitting in my space like it had always been communal property. His wife Amy was there too, their kids running through the background, touching everything, leaving fingerprints on windows that had only known mine. The camera moved to the kitchen window. They'd spread out a feast on my counters. Store-bought pasta salad in plastic containers, boxes of wine, paper plates stacked next to my carefully chosen ceramic ones. Someone had moved my coffee maker to make room for a slow cooker I'd never seen before. Then Marcus caught something that made my hands shake. Through the bedroom window, my bedroom, my private space, I could see Nancy going through my closet, pulling out clothes, examining them, showing something to Amy with obvious commentary. "Should I call someone?" Marcus whispered in the video. "This doesn't look right." The video ended. I sat in my pristine hotel room, 6 time zones away, watching my secret world become their playground. My phone buzzed again. Instagram notification. With trembling fingers, I opened the app. Megan had posted a series of photos. Her in my sweater, standing on my deck, the lake sunset view from my living room, a group selfie with the caption, "Surprise family weekend at our new lake house. So blessed to have a family that shares everything. Family first. Lake life. Blessed Erge Mitchell family retreat. Our lake house. Our..." The comments were already rolling in. Friends congratulating them on the beautiful property. Cousins asking when they could visit. Linda had commented, "So proud of our family tradition of togetherness." I scrolled through Megan's stories, videos of them toasting with my wine glasses, Nancy giving a tour, opening cabinets, showing off the space like she was a real estate agent. "The kids just love having a place to gather," she said to the camera. "Family is everything. My sanctuary, my refuge, my carefully guarded secret invaded, occupied, claimed." I tried calling Ethan, straight to voicemail, called again. Nothing. Tried the landline at home, no answer. They were all at my cabin, probably with phones forgotten, too busy colonizing my sacred space to bother with the outside world. I sat on the hotel bed, laptop still glowing with tomorrow's presentation, while my family celebrated their discovery 3,000 miles away. They'd found my hiding place and immediately infected it with their presence, like a virus that couldn't help but spread to every available surface. The worst part wasn't just the invasion. It was the assumption, the immediate, unquestioned assumption that what was mine was theirs. No one had called to ask. No one had wondered if they should. They'd simply found it and taken it, like conquistadors planting a flag in land that was already occupied. My phone continued buzzing with notifications. More photos, more tags, more people congratulating my family on their beautiful lake property. Each ping felt like another violation, another theft, another step deeper into my space. 3:20 in Berlin. I stopped trying to sleep and started planning what I'd do when I got home. I called everyone. Linda's phone rang and rang before going to voicemail. "Mom, call me immediately," I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Nothing. Megan's phone went straight to voicemail, probably dead from all her photo taking. Daniel, Paul, Nancy, Gerald, every call unanswered, like they'd collectively decided the outside world didn't exist while they played house with my life. By 4 a.m. Berlin time, I was pacing my hotel room like a caged animal. My presentation was in 4 hours. I had investors expecting sharp analysis and confident projections, and all I could think about was Nancy's hands rifling through my closet, Megan's feet on my coffee table, their voices filling my silence. I tried Ethan one more time. This time. It rang twice before rejecting the call. He'd declined it. My husband had actively chosen not to answer while my family ransacked my secret. That's when something in me snapped. Not broke snapped. Like a rubber band pulled too tight, flying back with vicious force. I opened my laptop and started typing. "Ethan, right now, our families are having a party in my cabin at Lake Pinecrest. Yes, my cabin. The one I bought with my inheritance, in my name only, as my private space. The one you knew nothing about because I knew this would happen. Your mother would make a copy of the key. My mother would treat it like community property, and you would let them. I have video evidence of them breaking and entering. They're going through my closets, wearing my clothes, posting photos on social media claiming it's our family lake house. This is criminal trespassing. You have exactly 1 hour to get them out. Every single person needs to leave immediately. If this isn't handled by the time you receive this email, I'm calling the police from Berlin to report a break-in. I have documentation proving sole ownership. And Ethan, if you knew about this and didn't tell me, if you were part of this invasion, we're done. I'll be filing for divorce from this hotel room and you'll be served papers before I'm back on American soil. 1 hour. Clara." I hit send and immediately forwarded Marcus's video to Ethan with another message. "Evidence of criminal trespassing at my property. Police report will include this video." Then I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At the 20-minute mark, my phone exploded. Ethan calling. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Clara, what the hell is going on?" His voice was breathless, like he'd been running. "What cabin? What are you talking about? Where are you right now?" "Ethan. I'm driving. I was at home. I just woke up to your email." "Clara, you bought a cabin. When? How do I not know about this?" The confusion in his voice sounded genuine, but I was beyond caring. "Our families are there right now. Your mother, my parents, everyone. They're having a party in my private property. How did they find it? I don't know Jesus. Clara, I didn't even know it existed. Why didn't you tell me?" This is why I practically screamed into the phone. "Because nothing in our lives is private, because your mother reorganizes our closets, and my mother reads our mail, and everyone thinks boundaries are suggestions. I needed one thing, Ethan. One place that was just mine." Silence except for the sound of his car accelerating. "How far are you?" 20 minutes out. "Clara, I found something. Last week, when I was looking for our passports in the filing cabinet, there were property documents I didn't recognize. I figured they were old, from before we met. But Mom was there, helping me look, and she made copies. She must have. God, Clara, I'm so sorry. I'm going to handle this. You have 40 minutes left. Ethan, I'm handling it." The next 30 minutes crawled by like hours. I sat in my Berlin hotel room, watching the clock, refreshing Instagram to see if more violations would be posted. Megan had added a story, a video of everyone singing around my fireplace. wine glasses raised, Nancy calling it our new family tradition. Finally, Marcus sent another video. This one showed Ethan's truck skidding into the driveway, gravel flying. He slammed the door so hard the sound carried across the lake. Even from Marcus's distance, you could see the fury in his body language as he stormed toward the cabin. The music cut off abruptly. Through the windows, I could see Ethan gesturing violently, pointing at the door. Nancy's mouth opened in shock. Linda stood up, wineglass still in hand, clearly arguing, but Ethan wasn't having it. Marcus had crept closer, catching audio fragments. Criminal trespassing. Police. Divorce. Get out. Now. The exodus began. Megan stormed out first, my sweater still on her body, Ryan trailing behind. Nancy came next, clutching her purse, Gerald trying to calm her. Linda and Paul emerged, my mother's face twisted in indignation. Daniel appeared to be trying to mediate, but Ethan shut him down with a gesture that needed no translation. Within 10 minutes, the cars were gone, leaving only Ethan's truck in the driveway. The lights went out one by one until only the porch light remained. Marcus's final shot showed Ethan standing alone on the deck, phone to his ear. My phone rang. I answered without speaking. "They're gone," Ethan said quietly. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The place is a mess. They went through everything. Your mom broke a mug. There's wine on the couch. They used your bedroom, your clothes. We'll deal with it when I get back. Clara, why didn't you tell me? Why did you need to hide this from me?" I stared out at the Berlin skyline, the first hints of dawn creeping across the horizon. If you have to ask that question, Ethan, then you haven't been paying attention for 8 years. The video call connected at 6 p.m. Berlin time, noon in Michigan. Ethan had propped his phone on my kitchen counter at the cabin, walking through each room to show me the damage. My leather chair had wine stains on the arm. The coffee table had water rings from glasses set down without coasters. My bedroom. God, my bedroom looked like a department store dressing room after Black Friday. Clothes pulled from hangers, jewelry box opened and rummaged through. My private journals moved from the nightstand to the dresser. "Your mother read them," Ethan said quietly, camera focusing on my journals. "Nancy mentioned something about your interesting thoughts about family. I'm sorry, Clara." The violation felt complete. Those journals held my unfiltered truth thoughts about Nancy's intrusions, Linda's manipulations, my desperate need for space. Now they'd been consumed, digested, probably discussed over wine while wearing my clothes. "There's more," Ethan continued, moving to the kitchen. "I found this." He held up a key, a shiny duplicate on a keychain that read Lake House in Nancy's distinctive label maker font. She made it look official, like it was always meant to be communal. "Clara, I swear I didn't know." "But you knew she saw the documents." His silence stretched across the Atlantic. I didn't think. I saw her looking at them, but I was distracted, searching for the passports. You should have, but you didn't. Because in your mind, Ethan, family accessing our information isn't a violation. It's normal. That's not fair. Isn't it when your mother reorganized our closets? You said I should be grateful. When my mother read my email, you said she meant well. When your father rebuilt our deck without asking, you called it generous. You've been training me for 8 years to accept invasion as love. Ethan set the phone down, and I could hear him moving around, maybe cleaning. When he picked it back up, his face looked older somehow. "They're all messaging me," he said. "Your mom says you're overreacting. My mom is crying, saying she just wanted the family to have a gathering place. Megan is threatening to uninvite us from the wedding. Good. Clara, I'm not discussing this anymore tonight. I have a presentation in 2 hours that could secure $10 million in funding. I need to compartmentalize this disaster and be brilliant for 90 minutes. Can you do one thing for me? Anything. Change every lock on that cabin. Today. Call a locksmith now. Pay whatever emergency rate they charge. And Ethan install cameras. I want to know if anyone even drives by that property. Clara, their family. They made a mistake. They committed a crime. Breaking and entering is a crime. Trespassing is a crime. Theft, because yes, wearing my clothes without permission is theft is a crime. The only reason they're not in jail right now is because I was in Berlin and you got there in time. You wouldn't really have called the police on our families. I laughed, bitter and sharp. That's where you're wrong. I absolutely would have. And Ethan, I still might. His face paled. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done being the family doormat. I'm done pretending invasion is intimacy. I'm done accepting that privacy is selfishness. When I get back, things are going to change. What kind of things? The kind that involve lawyers. Clara, please, don't make any decisions while you're angry. Let's talk when you get home. I'm not angry. Ethan, I'm awake. There's a difference. I've been sleepwalking through 8 years of boundary violations, telling myself it was love, that I was too sensitive, that family means sacrifice. But you know what I realized at 3 a.m. this morning? What family shouldn't feel like drowning. Love shouldn't feel like suffocation. And if the people who claim to care about me can't respect a simple concept like privacy, then maybe it's time to redefine what family means to me. I could see him processing, his engineer's mind trying to find the structural flaw he could repair. But this wasn't about fixing anymore. This was about demolition. I'll change the locks, he said finally. I'll install cameras. I'll handle it all today. And Ethan, move your mother's spare key collection to the garage. All of them. Every single key to every single family member's house. Because when I get home, if I find out she still has unrestricted access to other people's private spaces, that's going to be part of my conversation with my lawyer. Clara, you're talking about divorce. I'm talking about boundaries. Whether that includes divorce depends entirely on what happens next. You kicked them out today that bought you a conversation. But if you defend them, minimize this, or try to make me the villain for wanting privacy, then yes, I'm talking about divorce. The presentation prep cards sat untouched beside my laptop. In 90 minutes, I'd need to be sharp, professional, compelling. But right now, I was planning a different kind of strategy, one that would teach my family that Clara Mitchell was no longer available for public consumption. I have to go, I said. My presentation is soon. Clara, I love you. Then prove it. Choose my privacy over their feelings. Just once. Ethan. Choose me. I ended the call before he could respond, staring at my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd left Detroit 4 days ago. That Clara would have forgiven, smoothed over, made peace. This Clara was making plans. I came home early, cutting my Berlin trip short by a day, told Everline I had a family emergency, which wasn't a lie. But instead of going home, I drove straight to Rebecca Morrison's law office in downtown Detroit. Rebecca specialized in property law and restraining orders. We'd met at a conference 2 years ago, and I'd kept her card, somehow knowing I might need it. Cease and desist letters for all of them, I told her, sliding a folder across her mahogany desk. Criminal trespass warnings. I want it clear that any future unauthorized entry will result in prosecution. Rebecca, a woman who understood boundaries in her bones, didn't blink. Including your husband. Separate document for him. He's not banned, but I want a legal agreement about property rights and access. This cabin is mine alone. She nodded, making notes. And the social media posts. Demand immediate removal. They're using my property image for false representation. My sister is profiting from engagement on posts featuring stolen access to my home. Within 3 hours, I had a stack of legal documents that felt like armor. Next stop, the cabin. New locks were installed, as promised. Security cameras covered every angle. Ethan had cleaned, but I could still feel their presence like ghostly fingerprints. I spent 2 hours sage-smudging every room, something the old Clara would have mocked, but the new Clara found necessary. Then I got strategic. First, I created my own social media post. A single photo of the cabin's exterior with the new security camera visible. Caption, Private property rights are non-negotiable. To those who entered my personal property without permission last weekend, you've been documented. Legal action pending. Check your property rights, check privacy matters, legal consequences. The responses were immediate. Megan called 15 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Linda texted in all caps. Clara Marie Mitchell, you take that post down right now. I responded with a photo of the cease and desist letter with her name on it. Then came phase 2. I hired a process server, a former Marine named James, who specialized in difficult deliveries. I want them served publicly, I told him. But legally, every I dotted, every T crossed. The Mitchell family was having their regular Sunday dinner at Nancy and Gerald's house. The whole family would be there, which meant maximum impact. I knew because Nancy had texted Ethan about it, saying, "We need to discuss Clara's behavior as a family." James arrived at 2:15 p.m., right as they were serving dessert. Ethan told me later how Nancy's face went from confusion to horror as James announced, "Legal documents for Nancy Mitchell, Gerald Mitchell, Linda Patterson, Paul Patterson, Megan Patterson, and Daniel Patterson." The dining room went silent. James handed each person their envelope, getting signatures, taking photos of the delivery for court records. "You've been served," he said to each one, professional and unmoved by Nancy's tears or Linda's sputtering rage. But I wasn't done. Monday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the Michigan State Police for breaking and entering. I had video evidence, social media admissions, and property documentation. The detective, a woman named Sharon Hollis, took my statement with grim professionalism. "Their family," she asked. "Does that make it legal?" "No, ma'am, it does not." The police visits began Tuesday. Each family member got a knock on their door. A formal warning, a record in the system. Megan called me sobbing that her future in-laws were asking questions. Daniel's wife Amy said the neighbors saw the police at their house. Nancy had to explain to her book club why an officer interrupted their meeting. Then came the family meeting, or rather, their attempt at one. Linda organized it at her house Friday evening, demanding my attendance via a group text that included extended family, trying to shame me into compliance. Family meeting to discuss Clara's disturbing behavior and legal attacks on those who love her. I responded to all. Any discussion of my property or privacy will be conducted through my attorney. Contact Rebecca Morrison, Morrison and Associates. But I did show up, not to participate, but to make a statement. I walked in at 7:30 p.m., dressed in my best business suit, carrying a folder. The room was full aunts, uncles, cousins, the entire cast of my invasion. They all started talking at once until I held up my hand. "I'm here to say one thing," I announced, pulling out copies of the police reports, the property deed, screenshots of Megan's social media posts, and Marcus's videos. I laid them out on Linda's coffee table like evidence in a courtroom. "This is breaking and entering." I pointed to the video. "This is theft." I indicated photos of Megan in my clothes. "This is trespassing." I gestured to the images of them in my cabin. "And this is the consequence of violating my boundaries." I pulled out the final document, a family tree I'd drawn with red X's through the names of everyone who'd been at the cabin. "These people are legally banned from my property. If any of you step foot on my land again, you'll be arrested. This isn't a threat. It's a promise backed by law." Nancy stood up, shaking. "Clara, we're family. Family doesn't break into each other's homes. Family doesn't steal. Family respects privacy." "You're overreacting," Linda spat. "This vindictive behavior is perfectly legal," I interrupted. "Unlike what you did." Ethan stood beside me, and for the first time in our marriage, he spoke the words I'd waited 8 years to hear. "If any of you contact Clara about this again, except through her lawyer, I'll be filing my own complaints. What you did was criminal. The only reason you're not in jail is because Clara chose restraining orders over prosecution. Be grateful." The room erupted, but we were already leaving. The room exploded into chaos. Linda's voice rose above the rest, shrill and accusatory. "You've lost your mind. Clara involving police lawyers, over a little misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I laughed, cold and sharp. You read my private journals. You wore my clothes. You claimed my property as yours on social media. Which part was the misunderstanding? Megan was crying, mascara running in black streams. You've ruined my wedding. Ryan's parents think we're criminals. You are. I said simply, you committed crimes. I just held you accountable. Nancy clutched Gerald's arm, her face red and blotchy. Ethan, your wife has destroyed this family. No, Ethan said, his voice steady. You destroyed it when you copied keys to a property that wasn't yours, when you invaded Clara's privacy. When you assumed ownership of something you had no right to touch. Daniel tried one last time, his diplomat mask cracking. Clara, surely we can work this out without consequences. I pulled out my phone, showing them the new security footage from that morning. This was taken at 6:45 a.m. today. That's your car. Daniel, driving slowly past my cabin. Were you checking if I was there? Planning another invasion? His face went white. I was just violating the restraining order. This footage has already been sent to the police. The silence that followed was beautiful, complete. For the first time in my life, my family had nothing to say. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice calm as a frozen lake. You're going to respect my boundaries, all of them. No more surprise visits, no more going through my things, no more assuming what's mine is yours. You're going to learn that love doesn't mean ownership, and family doesn't mean unlimited access. Or what? Linda challenged, but her voice wavered. Or you'll learn how serious the legal system is about protecting property rights. Ask yourself, is violating my privacy worth a criminal record? Is entering my cabin worth jail time because I will press charges? Every single time? Paul, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. Clara, this isn't who we raised you to be. You're right, I agreed. You raised me to be a doormat, to accept invasion as affection, to believe that boundaries were selfishness. But I grew up, and I chose to be someone who values herself enough to demand respect. We left them there, standing in Linda's living room, surrounded by evidence of their crimes and the rubble of their assumptions. Ethan drove while I stared out the window, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. You okay? He asked as we pulled away. I'm free, I said. The next morning, I drove to my cabin alone. The November air was crisp, leaves crunching under my feet as I walked to the door. My key, the only key now, turned smoothly in the lock. Inside, everything was mine again. The silence, the space, the solitude. I made coffee in my kitchen, sat in my chair, and watched the sun paint golden streaks across the lake. No one would drop by. No one would call expecting entry. No one would assume this space was theirs to claim. On the wall by the door, I hung a new piece of art, a framed copy of the property deed with my name in bold letters, beside a photo James had taken of the cease and desist letters being served. Some might call it petty. I called it a monument to boundaries. My phone buzzed. Ethan texting, "Your mom tried to call me. I didn't answer. Your space, your rules." I smiled, maybe the first real smile in weeks. Later that afternoon, I walked down to the lake's edge where I'd installed a new sign, bigger than the first. Impossible to miss. Private property trespassers will be prosecuted, no exceptions. No family discounts. C. Mitchell, sole owner. A year ago, I would have been horrified by my own actions, desperate to make peace, to smooth things over. But standing there, watching the sunset turn the lake to liquid copper, I felt no regret. Only relief. Some might say I went too far. That family deserves forgiveness, that I should have handled it privately, quietly, with grace. But grace had gotten me invaded. Forgiveness had gotten me violated. Quiet handling had gotten me a family party in my sanctuary. Sometimes, the only way to teach people about boundaries is to build them out of legal documents and consequences. Sometimes, the only way to claim your space is to defend it like a fortress. The lake was still. The cabin was quiet. And for the first time in my entire life, I was exactly where I belonged alone, by choice, in a space that was absolutely, legally, unquestionably mine. I took a photo of the sunset from my deck, the same angle Megan had posted from, but this time the caption read, "Privacy is not negotiable. Boundaries are not suggestions. And family that doesn't respect either is just a group of people who share DNA." Then I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and watched the stars appear over my lake, my cabin, my life. The revenge was complete. The boundaries were set. And Clara Mitchell, she was finally home. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had to set hard boundaries with family? How did you handle it? Your experiences matter, and I'd love to hear them in the comments below.